Hi, and thank you so much for joining me. My name is Tom Fels. I'm a proud South African, a passionate traveler, and a global ambassador for the Transformational Travel Council. Over the next 30 minutes, I'm going to be sharing with you my vision of Africa as a platform for transformation and growth, knowing that so much of what's happening around us in the world is prompting a change in how we see the world and act in it and adopt a responsible approach to our citizenship and our connection to community. So if you allow me just 2 seconds to get going, I'm going to be sharing the screen. Awesome. So as I've said, Africa has this amazing tapestry of richness and of depth that I think is truly transformational. To give you a little bit more context to my role in travel and in the world, I'm the founder of a conscious business advisory named Anmarum. We really help businesses navigate this change and this shift towards a more inclusive and sustainable way of being that serves people and planet. We are the Southern African representative of the global B Corp movement and an ally of the Transformational Travel Council. Today I'm going to be using the construct of Joseph Campbell's hero's journey. For those of you who aren't aware of it, I suppose if you look at the traveler up top, you might consider that anyone going about their normal daily lives in a city anywhere. And at some point they are called to adventure. That might be through a realization that what they are doing no longer serves them. Sometimes it's through some sort of dramatic event in their lives that they know suddenly that they need change and that they are called to some form of adventure. What that adventure looks like is crossing over a threshold into really an unknown space. And this can happen physically, it can happen literally, but certainly there's no better way to do it than a journey of some kind. And you go through this landscape of challenges and of conquests and of facing your biggest fears, which gets you to a point of facing your ultimate fear. And when you've overcome that, you are restored and regenerated. You've metamorphosized into something new and bigger and greater than you were before. And that leads you back into the recrossing the threshold in returning home and sharing that journey and honoring that experience and being someone new and really, someone more enhanced. So if one considers the year that we've had so far, certainly 2020 felt like and ought to have been the year of 20 plenty. And I know this hashtag was circulating around the world around New Year's as we entered this year. And what we've seen is this expectation of more and abundance and growth and prosperity has actually been almost, counterbalanced by an experience of having less, being more separate, having the rifts in our society become totally exposed, having our economies around the world collapse, and having our connectedness taken away from us. This has obviously had a massive impact on the travel industry itself. And in almost no other industry has there been such a catastrophic effect of all the things that we've seen this year, and it continues on today. And what this is demonstrating is actually that as a humanity and as a society, we've reached the end of a pendulum swing where there is a deficit of love, of humanity, of hope, and of trust. And there's an excess of power and of greed and of imbalance. And this is prompting us into a radical change. And it's been coming for some time. It's almost that the bottle has just popped. And in amongst all of this tension and this separateness and this angst comes this new idea that I think is inspiring and optimistic and worth grabbing onto. And that idea is expressed in this highlighted piece of the quote from Xavier Dagba, which says that a shift is happening, a veil is being lifted, and we are waking up from a spell. And that actually, you're right on schedule. It's just what we've been waiting for. The United Nations had already been calling this the decade of action, the time that we are all due to come together to work towards a more sustainable and prosperous future. More recently, the World Economic Forum is calling for a great reset, a new social contract to be constructed with all of us included, businesses, governments, civil society, a contract that honors the dignity of every human being, bringing us back to our humanness and to our truest intent. And so there's an inevitable transformation happening here. I think we all thought that this might be the decade of digital transformation. And I can tell you that there is a social transformation that has emerged that is far more powerful than the expectations of this decade could ever have forecast. And so in this, if you consider yourself in society, in your role in the world, you're seeing that we're all being called to adventure and that our hero's journey is just beginning. Now, as an African, I'd like to motivate that Africa is the landscape for that travel, for that journey, for that exploration. And that might require a little bit of a reset in how people see Africa and redefining Africa's image. Let me lift the lid on that for you for a while. First of all, we know that Africa is the birthplace of humankind. If you go back millennia, you'll find that the earliest humans evolved here, found their trade, their craft, their communities, and their cultures. And so inextricably linked to this birthland is a connection to each one of you around the world, wherever you might be. Our DNA traced back to this place. And so is a deep rootedness, the motherland, that we all share. And in that, in society, in humanity, we share a DNA level commonality. The other thing you might not realize about Africa, seeing that it's a very old continent, is that actually it's also the youngest continent in the world. And that, if you look at the youngest countries in the world, almost all of them are in Africa. That's the top 10 countries. All the youngest countries in the world are African. The other thing that might startle you is that Africa is the highest population growth rate in the world. And look at this graph between now and sort of 2100. There's no doubt that Africa is going to play a dramatic role in the narrative of the world. And so what does that look like? What are we exporting? What are people going to experience when they come here? I think what they're going to experience fundamentally is a youthful energy, an optimistic energy. And the fact that Africa will be the greatest exporter of human capital in terms of intellectual property and new ideas. It's the continent that has been almost forgotten about from a place of inspiration and modern business. But I can tell you that there are new expressions of Africa that are being shipped to the world that draw on our heritage, but have this incredible expression out in the world that is worthy of any catwalk around the world. We have our celebrities not paling in the face of coronavirus, but actually embracing it as an opportunity, again, for expression and for true identity. We have graphic artists representing dystopian futures, merging the ultra wealthy and certainly the poorer aspects of community, which we see so often in Africa. The fact that communities are living side by side, some in poverty and some in wealth, and that this creates a melting pot of cultural adventure, cityscapes. It's really just a plethora of stimulus for the mind and for the body. And so what of travel? As all of us as travelers and those with opportunity to exchange our material comforts and our material wealth for experiential wealth, and perhaps losing ourselves in an environment where we find ourselves once more. And so Africa can be this catalyst for change. We see here in the wide open spaces, we see here in the people, that the culture of this continent is still truly alive. And as such, it represents almost a window into what was and what is to come. It's a landscape of wide open spaces. And so as a traveler, you can find the solitude to breathe and to be and to explore on a macro scale over a long journey, and not try and just fly through a trip and see as much as possible. But you can really take time to slow down your clock here, to unwind from the energy of the world that you are so used to living and being in. That in our accommodations, you can find shelter in rich and raw and natural tactile experiences, that using simple, common assets that we have in natural resources, that there's a tremendous amount of ingenuity that is being embraced in the way that those resources are being tooled and designed to create really impressive and unexpected expressions. That when you come to Africa, it's not just about eating, but it's about nourishing and taking the time to appreciate the food and where it came from and the richness of the land. Crucially, there's tons of experiences here which enable you to be part of that journey, whether it's about foraging through the Cape Fynbos to find ingredients for a table harvest, and really learning through that experience, not just having a plate brought to you of local cuisine, but actually being a part of the journey of sourcing the ingredients, understanding, when they flour, when they're ready to eat, and how they're cooked. It gives you such a deeper appreciation for what you're putting into your body, changing the idea of fueling your body to nourishing your body. And then who's cooking your food? That's an important thing too. So often, we have chefs hidden in the kitchen, but in Africa and many of the destinations that you might visit, the chefs are recruited from local villages. They are trained to the highest standards, the standards of, restaurants at their peak around the world. And they're there in service of you, but they have stories to tell. And if we tap into the culture that they can bring to that meal and to the experience of interacting at a restaurant, at a venue, I think you'll see that you'll benefit not just from the food, but from the connection that you have. Talking about connection, this continent is alive with animals in whose eyes we see ourselves. And what a place to reconnect with your humanity and reconnect actually through nature. Whether it is on the wide open plains of the Serengeti, the tropical jungles, and the mountainous volcanic areas where we see these incredible gorillas in Rwanda, Uganda. There's just a variety of moments available to us to engage and connect truly to ourselves and to be aware travelers. So having planned your journey, having thought about what you want to achieve, that on the ground you can really achieve this sense of connection. And when it comes to community and the local town, there's no better way to do this than to dismount. To check your ego at the door, to be humble, to meet the community and the people where they're at in their daily lives, and to join them on the walk through the village, on the corner cafe, having a conversation, going about their work, and really being a part of the movement of a place rather than a spectator, sort of obtaining extractive photographs, experiences off of the back of a touring vehicle or something like that. And Africa still has many traditions that are alive and many rituals. And by embracing this and trying to put yourselves into those moments, you'll find that we've, in the modern age, largely lost our sense of ritual, our sense of coming of age, our sense of tradition, and replaced it with convenience. And so by swapping out, efficiency in our daily lives with a depth and a richness of experience, I believe that we have this ability to rewire ourselves to look for and to create new rituals and new experiences in our own lives when we return. And that's a crucial part of honoring the time that we have had abroad. In our cityscapes, you can find almost any form of inspiration, whether it is the bright, colorful vista of the houses in Bo-Kaap in Cape Town, or the dramatic street art in Accra in Ghana. That this landscape is so rich and vibrant in terms of how it affects our senses, and to take from that a richness that we can bring back into our own lives. When many people travel, they want to see the surface level of an area. But I think it's crucial that you spend time with local communities, understanding the nuance of organizations working in communities, the programs they have to engage, children, the programs they have to engage and create employment in areas. Africa, as you know, is a place of great wilderness landscape. So, anti-poaching and canine units are a feature in that landscape to make sure that, animals are kept safe and preserved for future generations. And so this is a continent of learning and extracting, a richness of information and experience, and not just having a surface level leisure trip. It's available to you if that's what you choose. But I think there's a lot more to be had and to be enjoyed here. And finally, because in many ways Africa is a laggard in terms of development, we're finding that we are leapfrogging to what is ultimately in many places of the world described as alternatives, but in South Africa is often necessities. Because of the rural nature of many of the experiences, solar power is the only power available. And that's creating a wonderful sustainable footprint. And I think there's many, many lessons we can learn and apply it to our own lives when we take it back from a recycling, reduction of plastic perspective. Places like Rwanda, they've banned single-use plastic. You cannot take plastic into the country. And that country, once a month, every citizen is out in the streets, cleaning up the streets, cleaning up litter from the highest to the lowest citizen. That is a practice that they have that honors their own country. And so this rich, rich continent is really a place for rediscovery. It's a place where you can lose yourself in the unknown, and you can find yourself once again in the simplest moments of reflection and of time spent thinking about the experience that you're having. This woman, Lee Edelcourt, is one of the world's greatest trend forecasters, and I was fortunate to spend some time with her 2 years ago where she unpacked this incredibly simple concept, but actually one that is so true, and that is that hospitality, the experience of being hosted and cared for, can be like a hospital for the soul and can be a place of healing, and that coronavirus is a blank page for a new beginning. We have the choice to make now, and it is our choice alone to make in how we respond. And so rather than trying to collect experiences and tick them off a list, what we should really be looking for is meaning. As we travel the world, and as we travel through Africa, finding meaning. But seeking purpose requires us to explore, to imagine, to adapt, and to create. To explore from a place of openness, of humble intent, and a lack of ego. To imagine from a place of connection, to adapt from a place of choice, an internal choice that must be made, and to create new ways of thinking and being when you go back into your world. So what does this mean for us? It means if we adopt the paradigm of PATH, which is a transformational travel council asset, is pre-trip we need to prepare. We need to do our research and be inspired by the places we are going to see. But part of our preparation also requires us to think about where we're going, what we're taking there. Does that honor the place that we're actually going to go and visit? Are we packing in loads of harmful pesticide-based sunscreens and bug sprays? Are we taking lots of single-use plastics to have snacks? Are we going to places that are sustainable? The choices we're making are really to define our intentions for the trip. And when you're on the trip, to really explore the world and explore the continent with wide open eyes, embracing the moments, embracing the smells, embracing the difficulty sometimes of travel that is not always easy and that has its own interesting twists and turns, and understanding that that is a part of the travel experience. And making sure that we adjust the pace of our trips to make sure that we can spend time reflecting, can spend time breathing deeply and thinking back on our lives and reflecting on how, from a distance, we could be living better, be living more sustainably, be living more consciously. And that's a crucial, crucial component. And then afterwards, it's not just about creating a photo album, but it's about creating community. So staying in touch with those that you've met, either your hosts or those that you've met on the journey. Sharing the stories of your adventures with friends and colleagues, and not just on a superficial level, but on a deeper level. What happened to you? What is happening inside you now that you've been to Africa? And the way that you think about the continent, travel, yourself, and those around you. Are you bringing in practices of gratitude and reflection in your own lives that help you live better where you're at? And so if you bring this all back into the hero's journey, I would like to think that when one is called to adventure and decides to embark upon a trip around the world anywhere, that if you choose Africa, that Africa can be the landscape that colors your adventure, that provides you challenge, that provides you stimulus, that provides you connection, nourishment, and the opportunity for rediscovery. I passionately believe that Africa is a continent of the future, and I know that Africa is also a continent of today. In all of its challenges and trials and tribulations, it can be a place that is so uniquely rich in helping you uncover your own truth. And when you go back home and when you reflect and when you look back on your experience, you'll know that travel is where we rediscover our humanity, and that Africa was a beautiful canvas for that rediscovery. I want to thank you so much for joining me for the last half an hour, and I really wish you well as you explore the world, as we emerge from COVID-19, and we have this incredible opportunity to see travel and to see the world through new eyes, because we've spent months and months, confined to our own spaces and places and people. And this is a beautiful opportunity to reopen to the world, but do it in a more conscious and enthusiastic way. So with that, I'd like to thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate the time you've spent, and I would welcome any feedback and commentary. My email address is tom@animarem.com. That's ANIMAREM.com. Thanks so much. Have a great day.